Hi, Shopper Freaks. I'm Klaus.
Hi, I'm Riffle.
I'm Rashano.
I'm Steph.
And we're the builders of Elsie AI. Hi there, shopper freaks. If you run an online store solo, you're basically doing every job all at once. So we built Elsie, your AI partner that takes the busy work off your plate. Connect your store, and Elsie instantly learns how your business works. You can chat with Elsie about anything: marketing, inventory, website health. Marketing Gold turns your product catalog into ready to post social content. Check it out. And Website Health keeps your storefront fast, optimized, and shopper friendly. Soon, we'll add customer insights as well. Get ready to level up. We're on a mission, turning data into automated actions for SMBs because every small business deserves big power. Get started for Elsie at elsie-ai.com.
Welcome to the fourth episode of 90-Second Pitches. This is the channel that aims to introduce you to new technology in the e-commerce space before everyone else discovers it. I'm pleased to have Steph Reaves on the show today. You just saw the pitch for Elsie AI, and I look forward to the conversation we're going to have today, learning all about the business and all about the tech. How are you doing, Steph?
Great. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Paul.
Yeah, thanks for joining. So I know we're going to kick this off with a demo because people just saw that 90 seconds, and now I'm sure they're curious to learn how this works. So show us what you got.
Yeah. All right. Let me cue this up. So this is Elsie's home screen, or homepage rather. And I think, one way to introduce Elsie is around the problem that it solves. And it really is focused on a solo e-commerce entrepreneur who is juggling many things, but very busy with their day in and day out, and oftentimes doesn't have access to a business partner or a thought partner, right? Just to bounce ideas off of. So initially, what we've done is pull together what we consider three core modules for Elsie. One is marketing goal, which I'll dive into each of these in turn. Second is website health, and the final is the AI agent, Elsie, the business thought partner. But with each of these, Marketing Gold is really focused on helping a solo entrepreneur in e-commerce, and in particular, one who is just starting out. So it's like getting your start, or really ramping up the knowledge and learning curve around marketing and managing your website and inventory and all the things that a solo entrepreneur is doing day in and day out. But what we really want it to have here is just a clean interface, a unified dashboard. And that really speaks to another pain point that we heard in our user interviews around just the plethora of information and disparate places that they're going to accomplish tasks around various different facets of running the business. So with Marketing Goal, just diving in, you're able to create posts. So basically taking you from zero to halfway there, I like to say, in a matter of seconds or minutes. And you have a couple of options around the creation process. One, dream it up, and you're really just selecting your product, and the products are pulled in as you onboard. And so all you do is provide us with your website URL. We in the background go off, pull in your product list, and have that incorporated within Marketing Gold as well as Website Health, and then as a central component to the brain itself. You could also generate an image through pick and mix, which is just really the product plus an upcoming holiday of your choosing. And then from there, they'll generate in the background in creations. So what you see here is one such creation that I created this morning. And there's the ability to, within here, edit the images through prompt engineering. So what we try to do is give you a starter. So, no one's an expert at prompt engineer, or some people are experts at prompt engineering, but through our research, we identified most, small business owners in e-commerce, they're not experts at prompt engineering, right? So we're going out, finding the best prompts around very specific areas, and then inputting that. So, just
Sorry to
taking.
interrupt, but what's the product that we're looking at in that? Is that an iPad that I was seeing on the screen in the actual image itself? Because everything else is AI generated except for the item
So
that's painting, right?
that's a painting. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what it started with. And this image that I'm looking at was not there from the Shopify shop, right? It was just the painting by itself. And then your
Yeah.
prompt will create it. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. So this painting is from my colleague's e-commerce store, Klaus's website. He sells paintings. And so if we look at this like create stage, this is where all of his product images were pulled in. And so you're right, Paul, all we're doing is just pulling in the individual product images from his website and then repurposing it with Elsie, in this case, Marketing Gold. And so underneath the hood, the model that we're using here is Gemini 3. And what we're doing across the board with Elsie is really looking holistically to find the best in class models for the specific use case, and then apply that strategically for our customers. So, there's obviously a plethora of LLMs that can be used, but it varies, your outcomes will vary by use case. So in this case, we've identified that Gemini is like the best in class for generating images. And underneath with the marketing caption, for example, we're using Claude. And so it's a mixture of models to get our clients closer to the finished output, and also quite frankly save them a large amount of time going to different models potentially, one not even having knowledge base around like appropriate prompt, etc. Even down to the captions themselves, we've thoughtfully applied kind of like standards or recommendations when we're prompt engineering these for the models. So, it's just really taking the level of expertise that we have in kind of like our use of marketing or our use of technology, and making it a little bit more accessible to anyone that would be utilizing or leveraging Elsie.
I'm excited to talk to you more about that. I don't want to interrupt your demo, so I want to see what else you can show us on here. But I
Yeah,
definitely have a fair amount to say about jumping between model to model to model in order to get something done. It's part of using AI, I think, at this point.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And then just, a little quick rundown of our what we call our editor. We What you see here is that image that I was just showing kind of in the modal view. And there's the ability for someone to come in and, really kind of push it. So like all the way from like refined, balanced to bold. They can swap out the product. So, you were asking earlier, like where's the product? But in here in the editor, you could swap out, to your heart's content really. And then strategically, you could add like a title placement or a call to action within it. And so these would be ready to download across the various social media platforms once you got to a state that you were happy with. But, you can see kind of like where it started. This example started, it was just a standard prompt. I think it was like the modern bold. And then here I prompted, kind of make the painting or the product the focal point. It, brought it a little more to the foreground, a little crisper. And then finally, I just asked it to remove the people and have it front and center. So that's kind of, where anyone would be able to track their revisions and edits. So with website health, um, this one is much more focused on looking at the e-commerce sites accessibility or SEO, and understanding how it maybe is impacting their ranking on Google or sales through various accessibility issues. Underneath the hood with this one, we're leveraging a couple of tools. One, Google Lighthouse for SEO and accessibility, and then also ChatGPT for the conversations within Elsie. So this also is for my colleague Klaus's e-commerce site, but you see this first priority, high priority area is around a missing H1 tag. And what we try to do is be pretty prescriptive where the individual can find the issue. They can mark it as fixed. And then we provide manual steps in layman's terms. So anyone hopefully can go in and do it without requiring the need of a developer or development team. If there's further questions, the individual can come over to this area where it says, let Elsie help you. And, just out of the gate, it gives you a little bit of information on the problem itself, why it matters. So in this case, with H1 tag missing, it's hurting their, search rankings and indications on how long the fix would take someone. And then there's, you know, a number of such issues that were identified within Klaus's site, and or quite frankly, anyone's e-commerce site would be surfaced with Elsie. And then with the dashboard view, this is where we have some additional details or feature sets beyond kind of the baseline high priority issues. So we think of the home pages, baseline high priority notifications, urgent fixes required. And within the dashboard, this is where our users can basically go in, select which pages that they want to scan, all of their product pages, for example, or just a subset of them. Because initially out of the gate, as you can imagine, scanning very robust e-commerce sites would take a significant amount of time. So out of the gates, we're only scanning users' home pages. So that's a
I
little
gotcha.
walkthrough on website health. Now, with the LT agent, there's a couple of ways that our users are getting the most benefit out of it. One is we have LT Learning. So, for context, like LT starts off, and we could call it a brain, or you could think of it as like a knowledge base, but its knowledge base is very limited. So, its ability to help our customers and be a true strategic thought partner is limited by its knowledge. So what we have on the homepage is just a series of daily questions or questions that a user might answer to help improve Elsie's knowledge set. So the responses that it provides would be much more targeted and thoughtful to the specific business. Um, and then this is just like an example of a prompt that really we have a series of prompts that rotate. So again, just giving the new solo e-commerce founder options around where to start, so they're not starting from zero. But this was just one of the standard prompts. How can I attract more customers? And Elsie is in the background taking what it already knows about the business through the website, URL, scraping, etc. And then just providing ways that this individual, my colleague Klaus, can attract more customers, right? And so, like, it's pretty generic right now because this is the first engagement or conversation that I've had with it. But then as you dive deeper into it, it gives a bit more specific recommendations. And then over time, as Elsie learns the specifics, ins and outs of your business through either conversation or we are integrating, for example, with Shopify next year in January, we'll be able to pull in relevant and additional information that can make the business thought partnering more relevant and strategic in nature.
Because it'll have your analytics, your sales metrics, stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would
Exactly.
assume the recommendations it would make to someone trying to get their first $1,000 in sales would be different from a company that's trying to scale from 30,000 a month to 100,000 a month, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Spot on there. And um the one thing, we've gotten the start from in like proof of concept around the interest and the need just through publicly available information, a company's website URL. But in user testing, and we've developed an advisory group of some of our most enthusiastic core users. Like, what's evident at this point is like it's good, but what would be even better is if I didn't have to like respond to these questions. Like, this information is available on, my e-commerce platform. What would be even better is if Elsie just like knew it and pulled it in and leveraged it, appropriately.
But before I get into the tech stuff, talk to me a little bit about how this project got started, because I would assume when people are learning about this, one of my first thoughts when I was talking to Claus was, okay, but why? Like, if you have AI, if I can go straight to Chat GPT or straight to Google, you touched on one of them a little bit, just given the fact that I'm jumping between 3 or 4 different tabs. But besides that, what's the big thing you're solving that these models don't necessarily solve on their own?
Yeah. That's a great question. So if I go back to kind of like zero, where we started in the ideation phase, what that looks like is, say, like 10 or so user interviews, and like interviews that are generative, right? So we're looking to, one, understand like groupings of various customer types within e-commerce, and then two, really get a sense of their pain points and challenges day in and day out. And a couple of things became evident. One, the small businesses or e-commerce companies that were really small in size, say like fewer than 3 employees, or in fact, just a solo entrepreneur, were, I guess, disproportionately struggling with managing their business. So it's all of the aspects of running a business, but just for one person, like one person doing it all, right? And so there's also this aspect of knowledge and knowledge gaps. So if we think about a business with one individual, their their expertise is their expertise, but maybe, diversity in thought or knowledge would be additive to their pursuits in growing their business. Also, with our current ICP being businesses that have been in operations, or e-commerce businesses that have been in operation fewer than 3 years, that really kind of gets to the core of it. Is, we were frequently hearing people say, I I don't know where to start each day, or like, I know I have all these things to do, but it's not really evident to me what should be prioritized. And then sprinkle in the fact that it's maybe their first e-commerce business, or they're doing it part-time, just testing it out to see if like they could go full-time. There's just a big knowledge gap. And then with all of that, it becomes all of the places that they're going to do these daily tasks. So at a certain point, it just feels like an insurmountable task or like objective that they have for that day. And
So
so, yeah.
the folks who were talking to, they were the early stage, they're small teams or solopreneurs, and I would imagine are they low revenue? Was that kind of the three things that connected the group of folks that you talked to, or did revenue have nothing to do with it?
Uh, I mean, we asked about revenue, but revenue really wasn't a determining factor, because some of the businesses that we were speaking with initially had been around for 5+ years. So
Mm.
certainly there is sustainable revenue and profitability to keep them afloat, and keep interested in operating the business for 5 years. But where we found like the pain points to be most acute and most like our target users to be more passionate is with individuals that are just starting out. So in that case, yes, it's lower revenue, but what we've seen is with these individuals, like they're they're on the path to success, much like Elsie is. It's like you're starting out and they have these signals that tell them like, oh, if I do this or I adjust that, like I think that might be, a path to sustained success or long-term success for me. But on the flip side of it, it might be in an area that they don't have significant expertise, right? So one area that kept coming up, especially for our e-commerce founders that were early on, is that they personally don't have website or like web development expertise, right? And so that's where the notion of website health came out of. And the thing with that is like website health, when the website goes down or there's an issue, that's directly linked and impacting their bottom line, right? And so in speaking with these early stage small business owners, like that's the number one priority, right? Is like revenue growth, etc. So one might think that they're they would be more focused on marketing. But the reality is they have to do it all. And when you end up doing it all and there's a serious knowledge gap in terms of technical expertise and implementation, a solution like Elsie that explains it to you in layman's terms and even gives you some steps to implement and address yourself is a relief, to that individual. And so,
Certainly, because like there's tools, like for example, you had mentioned some of Google's tools earlier. So there's Page Insights. You can go to it, you can enter your website, it'll output everything wrong with your site from a technical or from an SEO perspective. But then if you're a non-technical founder and you're looking at those those results, it's like paint speed. It's
yeah,
like, what,
yeah,
I don't know what that is. I don't know how to deal with it. Um, we're talking about things in my header. What's a header? And a non-tech founder might,
Exactly.
oh, you're talking about where my menu is. It's like, well, yes and no. Above that, there's a whole meta header that you maybe didn't even know existed. So that's what the health one aims to cure. So you're saying that was as important to them as the marketing side of it too, huh?
Exactly, at the end of the day. And uh we strategically address the SEO and the accessibility issues first, but one that has kept coming back up and that we keep cycling back to is around the happy path to checking out, because rightfully so, all of this is tracing to dollars, right? And so there's unprompted, like, all of all of our advisory group members have brought up instances where and either their site goes down or a aspect to checkout is broken, and they're unaware until one of their friends or a truly like passionate customer lets them know. So, like, that's a big issue for these businesses, right? Is directly impacting their revenue and sales. But it's also something that Elsie could pretty easily monitor, or like have a run through of checkout as when there's updates to the site, just to ensure that something isn't broken. So that's an example of like where we look to take it next to add value to our customer base.
So you've got a few apps now. You've got Marketing Gold, all right? You've got Website Health. The LC Learning isn't quite a feature. That's more like ongoing learning for LC itself. That's more input than output. So it's like you
Mhm.
see questions pop up when you log into your dashboard. There was one other I saw called Color Grabber. Was that just a small tool when you're grabbing a hex code
Yes.
from image?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's exactly what it is. And uh, that's a great call out. And so with Elsie, like in vision state, we really would love for it to be a unified dashboard. And so it's taking all of the little things that an individual is doing, like getting hex codes and updating potentially marketing creative or assets to reflect whatever design elements they would like, just at their fingertips. And so there's a number of other we call them mini apps within Eltsy that an individual can add to their homepage. Another one is QR code. A couple of people have found value in just having a QR code generator, because one of the things that came up is like, if you use one of the ones that you find, just in a Google search, great. But then, like, sometimes there's this element of, oh, after 30 days, like it breaks or it doesn't work, or it, the sketchiness of, heavens forbid, like actually paying for it, because sometimes it's free. And so that's like another thing is like, sometimes people are just like looking for speed, and it's a utility that you know I know is just there. You could just go get it. So like, why wouldn't we offer that within Eltsy as just like an incremental value add, as a
I
mini app?
guess that's the big question. That's the first question I had with Klaus too when he was showing me, because when he had first started showing me this, it was a couple months ago at this point, and Elsie's come a long way even before then, because at the time it hadn't even gone into beta launch. So he was showing me kind of demos behind the scenes that weren't currently available to customers at the time, and my first thought was I was like, that's a lot. And still when looking at the demo that you've got going on today too, I was like, whew, that's a lot. But then you're like, actually, there's more. So there's a whole behind the scenes apps that we didn't see, the QR code. I'm sure you could name a few others. So uh, I guess my question is, what's the why go after such a large set of features? What's the pros and cons of doing so? And how did you guys kind of arrive at the decision to say, hey, let's build something more comprehensive as opposed to let's dive into one of these tools? Because each one of those tools that you offer, I would imagine there's apps on the Shopify app marketplace or SaaS tools that do each one of those individually. So how did you arrive at something like a more comprehensive package?
Yeah, that's a great question. When looking at where we see ourselves in like 3 to 5 years or even in vision state, it's truly the one-stop shop for solo entrepreneur and e-commerce. And if we work backwards and think about like the elements that need to be in place, one is like one central one we believe is the business thought partner, Elsie. Two is around the technical gap that a lot of e-commerce founders suffer from. And so that's where website health came in. And finally is around making money. So the marketing engine, right? And that was another, quite frankly, it wasn't so much as a gap as like an artist or anyone starting from zero. So like the cold start problem, that's what marketing goal like really seeks to solve. So it's get them partially there, right? And you're right, we could have taken the approach of say just focusing on the business thought partner or the website health or marketing goal, any of them, standalone basis. But when we're thinking about like from a product perspective and product delivery perspective on the path to delivering the vision, it typically how I build is a vertical slice. And what a vertical slice for me is elements that would exist foundationally in at the start should be there to get you all the way to vision state. So if it's only the business thought partner, then there would be lacking in aspects of like technical like expertise, right? If it was only marketing goal, then we wouldn't be helping these individuals on the that technical expertise. And so it's like what we released is that it's far from feature complete. It's a very small vertical slice of all of them, but it's an MVP. And so as like time goes on, we'll be able to identify which feature sets like within each of these core apps we should double down on, which of them we should move on from, if any, and then what should come next to really provide mostly, a platform is another way of like thinking about Elsie and vision state or calling it.
What else is on the radar? Because we saw like the marketing goal. We saw the uh, what was the other one that I saw on the the website health. You mentioned the QR code. Are there any others that are available now? So like what else is available now, and what's on the pipeline?
Yeah. So in the pipeline, we have that integration with Shopify. And initially, we'll just be getting the business's metadata, the individual's profile data, product information. And I think that's about it initially. So as to give the baseline to the brain, and then also feel website health as well as marketing goal. Down the line, we are planning, and down the line in Q1 of next year, planning to build out another core app, what we call customer insights dashboard. And what that really is we would be then leveraging the customer data or purchase data from Shopify, potentially integrating with our customers' CRM, and then connecting the dots all the way for them to, one, have insights on a customer, like customer types, their purchase histories, and ways that they could potentially delight them to have more repeat customers or pull whichever lever that they're looking to pull at that time. And then also, quite frankly, this was in user interviews a couple months ago, but with customer reviews, it depends on the e-commerce business, but some of them, the reviews are in disparate locations and they're not checking them as often as they would like to. So within customer insights, we would be aggregating the reviews and then surfacing like in an automated fashion to let them know, like, oh, hey, did you know, like, people are saying this about this product? Like, this is like a recommended way to respond to that review. This is a recommended action that you might want to take with that product. Things like that.
When you were doing the initial interviews with these founders and solopreneurs, did you find that they were looking more for an all-in-one platform as opposed to like, did they feel app overload? Because I've seen that before in the WordPress community, especially too. Honestly, WordPress and Shopify. Uh, some people feel like they're just using so many apps and then they're responsible for connecting all those apps. An API, for example, sounds amazing on paper and everything when everything functions properly, but it never does. Like, so for example, there's a couple websites that I've got just dozens of APIs that are supposed to be working seamlessly together, and everything does work together until one of those companies updates their API, which they constantly do, and then it breaks your entire process. So it's not as simple sometimes as just clicking connect and then everything works as simple. So I've come across that desire in the past a little bit too, and I've also just from working at Shopper Freaks, I've been pitched a lot of companies over the years, and last year, I remember I was talking to a hedge fund and they were asking me about trends. I said, "What have you noticed in the Shopify ecosystem?" And consolidation was one of the things that I mentioned to them. I said, if I look back at the past few months of being pitched different ideas and different apps, there has been an overwhelming amount of consolidators that come in and say, look, you're paying XXXXX. We can do it cheaper and better because it's all integrated. Um, I've gotten a lot of those landing on my desk. So I'm just curious if did you come across similar pain points when you were doing the interviews with entrepreneurs?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's expressed like slightly differently, I would say. And the expression that we heard was really around like the number of tabs that they have open. So it's like when they sit down, they're opening up Google Analytics, they're opening up Shopify, they're opening up Facebook or like Meta ads if they're running ads there, Instagram, well, part of Meta, but then, TikTok shop, all of that. And also their email, and a number of them are using like Canva and some project management tools, right? And so it ends up like, by kind of our estimates from what we've heard, typically like 10 to 15 tabs open any one day. And that, it can be mentally fatiguing for the individual. And so when we are going through the interview process, it's generative to a certain point. Then we do functional prototypes, and kind of like towards the end of the process of ideation, we'll present kind of like these vision states. And when we presented this kind of like unified view or dashboard, or what we call an SMB operating system or command center, the individuals were like, oh, this is what, would help me, right? And for us, kind of like to your earlier question, it's like on the path to getting there, it can feel like a lot for a user, right? So it's like our our balancing act is like figuring out like what exactly is absolutely needed, because the last thing we want to do with Elsie is overwhelm them with like the tools offered, because that's the exact same thing that we've heard that they're running from, is like tool overload,
You're
like
trading one platform with too much with another platform with too much. 10 to 15 tabs, that's rookie numbers too. But
yeah.
before we got podcast, I was working on a site and I was exactly in that same situation. I had, the Klaviyo, the Shopify, um,
Yeah.
but it was so that before we started, I was like, I'm going to close all these just to use a little bit less bandwidth. And that way I can switch back and forth between my notes tab and my Riverside FM tab without having all the,
Yeah.
like it gets out of hand really quickly. So that was one of the big things you heard was just like, I've got to be everywhere. It's to the point where having 2 monitor screens aren't enough to run an e-commerce business. It's like, you've got to have, those stockbroker,
Yeah. Yeah.
where you put, like all the screen. That's what it takes to run an e-commerce business now. My Google Analytics, my Klaviyo on this one, all of
Yeah.
them.
And that's the thing, and I think as a product builder, I really enjoy and live for like the moments when like we go through the research and then we hear from like more than one person like similar things, like unprompted from us, but one that um our product designer caught on to that I missed was exactly around Google Analytics. So it's not in the version of Elsie that's released, but it's also coming soon. And it was just a simple like, in Google Analytics, you have like your 7-day like average of users. Just that, like alone, got like a number of people excited. They're like, "Oh, like that would be great to have in the dashboard," and as like another little card, because like from our end, it's a quick integration, but from our users' end, it's saving me another tab. So it's like as Elsie's on the journey of like becoming the one-stop shop, it's like, how do we add enough at the right time so that like we're not just another tool like taking up their time or space?
So
So
it just launched, right? Like I'm so bad with that. This holiday season has flown
yeah,
by. So I'm trying to think back to my conversations with Claus when we had talked a couple months ago. He's like, we're a week away, and then I think it turned into 2 weeks away. So how long have you actually been live to the point that a merchant could go onto the website and sign up? Because right now it's free
about
if I'm not
6 weeks.
right.
Yeah, it's free.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 6 weeks. We launched mid-November. Um, and I would say this like sprint is when we've gotten to feature completion for the MVP. So what we launched with 6 weeks ago is drastically different from what we have today. And that is just like a part of how we build. And so it's every 2 weeks, we're in a cycle of like speaking to customers, learning from them about the product that has been built, but also about what would be better, right? And then feeding that into development cycle and then releasing that. So
When
it's
when you say
yeah,
talking to them, do you mean like conversations like this one on one, or is this like through the dashboard? You guys are putting prompts up and
great
or
question.
both.
It's both. Yeah, it's both. So we have prompts in the dashboard. We send out surveys to our users, and then with the advisory group, which is 4 members that are solo e-commerce founders, and 2 of them have been in operation under 3 years, and 2 of them have been in operation for 3+ years. But we have conversations with them on a biweekly basis just to, one, like, see what value, if any, Elsie is providing, where they're using Elsie, where they're not, for what reasons, why. And then we from that, we create features, revisions to products, or that core applications to more appropriately align with the advisory group. And what we've seen is over time, like take marketing goal for example, at launch 6 weeks ago, the promise was there. It's like I tell some people, I was like, it's the the product that you love because it's yours, but it's the unlovable lovable product, right? And so they really went on a journey with us because they could see, or they may have bought into the vision, right? And in many ways we craft the vision of Elsie with them, and founders like them. And so from that, like, they stuck with it. But we're to the point now where all of them have used like a photo, if not many, generated with Elsie. So I think that's a testament to the process. Now, would I love for it to be faster? Yes. I'm just not sure how to make it go faster than it already is.
I assume you're at the mercy of the LLMs too. So the other day I was doing a graphic for my stat of the week for Shopper Freaks, right? And so I needed a picture. I said, create me a $1 billion realistic looking USD, like a new note for $1 billion,
Hmm,
and put Elon Musk as the person on there,
nice.
because the stat of the week was talking about how many new AI billionaires have been created in 2025, in the past year. And so he apparently, I didn't fact check that, but it's like apparently his wealth blossomed to like 650 billion or something like that. I don't know. So I was like, all right, so just
Oh, wow.
make this
Okay.
graphic. So first I did it with ChatGPT, and it was terrible. It was like a square, and I was like, but bills aren't square. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to open Google Gemini. I'm going to open Meta AI. I'm going to open, what was the other one I did? Oh, X AI. And I just put the copy pasted the exact same prompt into each one, and the output difference was incredible. And just like you had mentioned
Hmm.
earlier, you said Google is winning, and that's the one that we're using for image generation. Google won by a landslide, and it actually came out with
Hmm.
$1 billion bill that looked like it could fit into the rest of the portfolio of bills that we have in America right now. It was really, really good. The Meta and X came up with like vertical playing card looking bills, and like I said, ChatGPT's was practically square. So I used to be a mostly Chat GPT user. I've had the Pro, whatever it is, since like the $20 a month one, since almost day one, a couple years back when they started offering it. And then maybe my expectations have grown. Maybe the model has gotten a little bit worse. Maybe a combination of both. I don't know. It's not such a novelty anymore. Now it's like, no, I expect you to do what I need you to do because I rely on you as part of my workflow. So I've just personally I switch between Google. I used Claude quite a bit, and I'm like, oof, I am becoming that person that has 3 or 4 different premium AI subscriptions. But I don't think that I'm picky, and I don't think that that's my fault. I think that that's where we're at with the state of AI. I cannot rely on ChatGPT to do everything well. It's terrible at coding. It's slow and terrible at image generation. So I've got my 4 tabs open. So what I was noticing earlier when you're doing the demo is like, it seems like one of the things that Elsie brings to the table is you're kind of creating a new dashboard that does that consolidation for the user. Am I thinking about that in the right way?
Yeah, it's definitely doing the consolidation, but I think for, like, how do I say it? Like, for users that are less tech savvy than like you or I, or less like, I don't know, weathered, like for the individual that wouldn't even test, Claude and ChatGPT and like Gemini, that's where like part of the beauty of Elsie comes in, because like they just offload that to the Elsie team, right? For us to do all the testing and find like the best model for each use case. And then within Elsie itself, we are like deciding with the agentic system the right LLM for the right task, right? And so that just, I mean, one, it's time savings, but two, like you're saying, you know, at this point you have a plethora of like paid subscriptions for AI with Elsie. Right now it's free. I mean, over time we will introduce a paid model, but that's part of the beauty in and of it, is that you would ultimately be able to have the right model for the right situation, and just like whatever price you pay within Elsie for the agent and then all of the core modules.
But aside from pricing, you know, you're working with a consolidated knowledge graph, is from what I was understanding as well too. And so it's like I could have my 4 tabs open with all these different things, but with Gemini, with ChatGPT, with Claude, but I find myself having to re-explain the setup for each
Yes.
one. You know, so I've been working with, let's
Yeah.
say, ChatGPT for an hour, working on developing something. It knows it knows exactly where I am in the process, and then it fails. And so I had to jump ship to go something else. And suddenly it's like, "Oh, I got to catch Claude up to speed on what I'm doing, what I've already tried. What, you know, there's so much to catch up
You're
on."
like copying, pasting between them, and you're like, take this prompt.
Whereas I think, and maybe this is going back from my conversation with Claude, but he was describing it kind of like as the brain. He's like, we keep the knowledge graph here, we keep all the information, so that when you actually go to leverage the LLMs, you're not necessarily starting from square one in terms of, let me provide you with all the background knowledge, all the scenario that I'm working with
Yeah.
now to output something. Uh, I don't know if you saw, but one of the other pitches that I had done recently was with the influencer AI, and you know, he's kind of in a similar boat. So he's got this platform that output, like, you can upload your connect your store to it, upload your products to it, and basically say, create me a model, a consistent model that I can use across multiple images, across multiple lifestyle photos. Put my product holding it, maybe it's clothes or whatever, and then put them into various situations. And so one thing too, I think a lot of people's questions now is like, why do I need this external platform to do this? Why can't I just do this with Banana Pro? You know what I mean? Or Nano Banana right now. It's like, well, you can, but I feel like at this current stage of those LLM chatbots, the power behind them is amazing. The interface to get them to do what you want is not so amazing. And so you were given the example of the prompt earlier, prompt engineering. It's like, there was this prompt floating around TikTok for a while, how to get this like black and white image of a certain style. And so it was like a paragraph long that described every single detail. I want the lighting to be like this. I want the color.
Yeah.
And it was words that I don't even know what those words were, because they're photography or industry words about photography and design and all that jazz. But the output was really great. And so I'm finding right now that there's a value, at least in this stage of AI, there's a value in a layer being built on top of these LLMs that help you arrive at the end point. That ultimately, yes, it's the LLM doing it, but as a user or a consumer, you just lack the ability at this point to get there on your own. You can now. So I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like I kind of put Elsie as a in that same category as like the influencer AI. It's like we're helping you use the tools better, and there's value to that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a little bit of like from a product perspective, it's in my mind like understanding the most desirable outcome or output in various different use cases or situations for the user, and then what controls or levers we have at our disposal from an engineering perspective, interfacing directly with these models, and then what controls would the end user want to exact. And I think it varies depending on definitely not I think. It definitely varies depending on the specific user type. But by Elsie taking kind of an opinionated or a pointed view, at least initially, on getting our customers to a point where there's a layer of abstraction that gets them closer to their desired outcome, I think that's another huge value add that Elsie brings to the table for sure.
So I guess this leads to one of my final questions for you. I want to be conscious of your time here, but um, what are you up against? Because you're Elsie's very, very new. You said it's been on the market for 6 weeks. You've got a timeline, but you're really running on two different timelines. You're running on your own internal, here's our roadmap for Elsie, but then you're also running on a parallel road, which is here's what everybody else is doing in the industry that we're from a competitive standpoint. Um, so I just wanted to ask, and then I'd love to give you my answer too, but I want to hear yours first. What are you competing against in 2026 as Elsie grows? I don't mean necessarily an exact identical concept of Elsie, but what external platforms or tools are you up against that a customer might use instead?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the competitive landscape, I break it apart into um, kind of like standalone tools that are direct competitors. So, for example, with like Canva, like we've heard it come up a number of times, like well-established company, great price point for e-commerce founders, but most of them have an established workflow where they log in, quickly get like whatever creative they need, and they're able to drive towards marketing assets and outputs, right? And Canva is implementing their own AI elements, right? That's just the state of affairs with every company at this point. And then, we're competing against what I would consider that's just an example of, say, like a standalone solution, right? But then there are similar companies, not exact, but there's companies like Use Motion, which take more of, I would say, like an agentic workflow approach to what Elsie is doing. But it's looking at all of the like operational flows that an individual and not necessarily an e-commerce but an individual would be completing in a day, and setting up like task managers or AI employees to handle those.
Mm.
So it's across like email, it's across marketing, it's across, I don't think it touches on technology, but you kind of like get the picture of that. And so there's a number of others like similar to them. And so that's in our minds, kind of the competitive landscape. How I think we win is always having our customers front and center, and continue to strategically differentiate around the knowledge base itself, Elsie's knowledge base, and growing that effectively with our customers and showing the value through that. And if we're able to do that, that will create stickiness within Elsie, because as the brain and knowledge base grows, that person is less likely to move to a competitor, right? Like the switching costs goes up in that case. And then the other aspect is, I think, around this thoughtful or strategic agentic routing that we've been talking about, with selectively using the right models. that as AI continues to proliferate, like in my opinion, that value will only grow as AI grows. And so those are the areas that I see Elsie like trying to stay in front of or trying
Mhm.
to compete on most.
I think that's a good vision. The only thing I would add to it when I was talking about competitors is, and you're not alone in this. I think every app or third party SaaS developer that caters to the Shopify ecosystem is up against the exact same thing, and that's Shopify themselves. With their Sidekick, I've not had good success with it so far, and maybe it comes down to my weakness. Maybe it's the prompt engineering. It all results revolve back to that same thing. But like I've tried using their AI tools to create product sections or product blocks, or I've asked their Sidekick, "Hey, come out with this report for me." And I've not done this hundreds of times, probably dozens at this point. And to this date, I'm batting zero. Like I'm at 0% have I ever gotten Sidekick to do anything that I want it to do. And the same thing goes for Google Analytics. I don't know a single person that likes Google GA4. I mean, it's just it's such a step back for your average user. I know really technical people that I spend $200 an hour to consult with and work with to create the dashboard. Like they
Yeah.
love it. They know it really well. But for everybody else that ever used it or stopped using it a few years back when it came out, it's just, so they came out with their AI chatbot. I don't know if to call it a chatbot, whatever it is. So it's like, enter what you want. And so I started entering, make me a report that does this. And I feel like it's just glorified search results. I'm like, no, that's not what I want. I described it pretty well what I wanted. And again, this could all be my weakness, but I feel like they're not doing a good job today. But it doesn't mean that Shopify, I have a lot of confidence in them. And it doesn't mean that they're not going to be doing a good job with it tomorrow. So
Yeah.
that I would feel is probably the biggest competitor to Elsie at this moment is just what we don't know that Shopify Sidekick is gonna become. Right now, I think they have like this legacy dashboard. When you're using Shopify, it feels like the platform was built 20 years ago because it was, but doesn't mean that summer edition 2026 is going to come out and they're going to be like, hey, check out our newly redesigned dashboard that looks similar, that's more user friendly. You know what I mean? That combines the different apps. So what do you think about that
Yeah.
state? You think I'm spot on with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I totally forgot to mention like Shopify. But I mean there's others, like there's WooCommerce and some people are using Squarespace for e-commerce solution. And so I fully agree. Like for these e-commerce marketplaces, it's definitely on their radar to like the problems, that we've identified, right? But I just think and believe that the way that we thoughtfully and strategically go about leveraging various models as well as integrating across Shopify, GA, Meta, ads, etc. Like, I'm not sure that they would be able to do that as seamlessly as well with the agentic like model routing effectively. So, I mean, we'll see.
I would
Like,
say that's the $1 billion question, right? That we'll find out soon. But
yeah.
no, I wish you guys the best of luck. I'm impressed with what I see so far, and I look forward to seeing where the platform goes in the future. For anyone listening, it's LCELSIE-AI.com, and of course, I'll have it in the description of the video. I really appreciate your time today, Steph. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul.